I'm back, and today this is a 4K desktop display, in which this amount of pixels represents 16 kilobytes of memory. In 1982, on the first ZX Spectrum, that is exactly how much memory developers had to program their games in. I am celebrating these games and the people who made them in this top 15 list.
Let's all turn on the tube. This is hot dog soup.
Of course, there are hundreds of videos with top 10 games lists for the ZX Spectrum, but none of them focus on this tiny era of its lifespan in which there was only 16K of RAM available for developers. Most people who bought the ZX Spectrum in those days opted for the 48K model. And very quickly, most software would be specifically produced for that model, leaving 16K users with a very limited amount of choice. Many game design ideas had to be left out because of memory limitations, and all kinds of levels, sprites and sound had to be recycled and repeated over and over again just to make the game a little bit bigger. But this also often made games repetitive and boring. For that reason, it would be an amazing feat if somebody made a game in only 16K of memory, which is so good that it still makes you cancel other plans. I've got this thing, so not today. At number 15, we have Pinball by Sagittarian Software. Released in 1983, it featured some sort of physics engine and a full-fledged pinball machine with different game states, bonuses and dual flippers. The game had basic graphics and sound, but your Spectrum gave it a 10 out of 10 and Crash called it good to very good, even though it didn't have a tilt option. The author of this game is unknown, but did a great 16K job. Position 14 is for Oh Mummy, a 1984 game by Darren White, who later went on to create some big games for the Speccy, such as Back to the Future 2 and Turrican. Oh Mummy is somewhat of a Pac-Man clone, combined with dots and boxes, in which you discover treasures and keys by traveling through a maze. You can also unlock additional baddies, which you don't want of course, and the game gets faster and faster each level. It scored above average in the press, but the basic gameplay and frantic speed makes it still nice to play today. Haunted Hedges by Derek Brewster, who later made games like Jasper and The Curse of Sherwood, is basically a Pac-Man clone, of which hundreds could be found back in the early 80s. The isometric view and increasing speed for each level made it unique, and you could even change the intelligence setting for the ghosts. Magazines weren't very impressed because they were already sick and tired of all the Pac-Man clones. But for a 16K title, it was fast and fun to play. Software Projects, famous for later titles such as Lode Runner and Jet Set Willy, in 1983 released Thrusta, a 16K single-screen game which is a platformer without jumping and with destroying of aliens using large boulders. Crash gave it 73% and the Spectrum Show said in 2013 that it is certainly well worth a look. Developer Patrick Richmond managed to stuff multiple monsters, laser shooting, multiple levels, as well as an attract screen and a demo mode into the game, which is quite impressive. And that is why it holds spot number 12. Phoenix, with two E's in the middle, by Mega Dodo Software, was of course a clone of the Phoenix arcade machine, with OE, and contained many of the original levels and sprites, including the alien spaceship, which is impressive for only 16K of memory. It plays very fast, and magazine reviews were positive overall, except when it was re-released as a budget title a couple of years later. Still worth a play today. With the top 10, we are now leaving the good games and we're entering a section with great games. At number 10, there is Trans Am by Chris Tamper, who will be appearing a couple of more times in this video. He became famous for classic ZX Spectrum titles such as Nightlore, A Tick Attack, Saber Wolf and Alien 8, with his brother Tim designing all the graphics. Trans Am was one of their 16K titles, and it combined racing, dodging other cars and finding treasure onto a top-view, free roaming world. It was basically just driving around trying to survive, but very exciting to play and well received in the press. There were no other 16K driving games like this, and therefore it deserves a spot here. This is Sir Lancelot by Melbourne House from 1984. Positioned at the number 9 slot, it is a platformer very much like Manic Miner, except it plays very, very fast and it fits inside of 16K of memory. Author Stephen Cargill later famously created Fighting Warrior and Shaolin's Road. In Sir Lancelot, you run around collecting items while dodging baddies. Basic stuff. Time wasting is not allowed because there is a timer that kills you if it reaches 0. This makes it even more hectic than it already is. Sir Lancelot received great reviews overall and was a crash smash because of its addictiveness and for having 24 levels, which was an amazing feat for a 16K game. It is still popular and very playable today. At number 8 we find Cruising on Broadway, which looks like a bunch of lines and blocks. And yes, it is a bunch of lines and blocks. Released by Solarsoft in 1983, receiving fairly positive reviews because of its simplicity and playability. The aim of the game is to traverse the entire single pixel line with your car. Well, car, it's a block. While you are chased by cops, which is another block. As a weapon you can place a gap in the line to block the cops. But that will also limit your own routes for escaping. Of course, you will be placing that gap right in front of your own nose at the wrong time. The game is fast-paced, has great sound and is exciting to play. You only get one life, but you just want to keep playing this again and again. Cruising on Broadway isn't a very well-known game, but definitely a 16K classic. Matthew Smith, world famous for creating Manic Miner and Jet Set Willy, started his ZX Spectrum career with Styx, a 16K single-screen triple-stage maze game. It has a maze containing a spider giving birth to tiny spiders, a water stage where you cross the river Styx, fighting piranhas, and a final stage where you fight the Dark One himself. Well, fighting is the wrong word, one shot will kill him. This game is unique because of its multiple levels on the same screen, offering a variety of challenges and, well, yes, because it was made by Matthew Smith, of course. It's quick to complete and gets harder every time it loops around. So you might find it repetitive, but it simply feels and looks so nice. Styx is a well-deserved number 7. At number 6, another Stamper Brothers game. Cookie, which they made in 1983. Cookie has wonderful colorful graphics, great sound, even a cutscene before it starts, and exciting gameplay. Multiple ingredients have to be shot with bags of flour to get them into a mixing bowl and make a cake. A bin monster will thwart your attempts by tossing around rubbish, and anything you touch will kill you. Cookie has multiple stages that offer new ingredients, all behaving differently, and is as addictive now as it was in 1983. Cookie is a must-play, even today. For number 5, we visit the Stamper Brothers once again in a game similar to Cookie. We could argue for days and days whether this game is better than Cookie or not. But I put this one above Cookie because it has slightly more complex gameplay. We're talking about Psst, of course, in which you have to spray insects before they destroy your growing flower. Different baddies require different spray cans, and this makes the game less repetitive than Cookie and twice the fun. It also makes it more difficult, but of course in the 80s almost any game was difficult. After Ultimate played the game, the brothers went on to found Rare Games and made many games for Nintendo platforms like Donkey Kong Country. It all started for them, however, on the 16K Specky, and Psst is one of their classics. Mike A. Richardson created multiple Spectrum hits, such as Turbo Esprit, Scuba Dive and Thanatos. For the 16K Spectrum, he created Jungle Trouble, a single-screen runner a la Pitfall, and Harrier Attack, which is the number 4 on this list. This side-scrolling arcade shooter lets you shoot fighter jets and bomb ground targets on an enemy island. Weapons and fuel are limited, and if you manage to finish each mission, you will return at the aircraft carrier to land. While this game is basic and repetitive, it's really exciting to play, even nowadays. The stages become longer each time, and you have to balance your speed with the amount of fuel you get. Harrier Attack received mixed reviews and was criticized because it was inspired by the Falklands War. But this amount of action in a 16K game is certainly worth its number 4 position. We have now reached the top 3, so get ready to post all your objections and complaints in the comments below. At number 3 we have the game that was called the best Spectrum game of all time by Your Sinclair magazine in 1992. And it received a crash smash when it was first released. It is an arcade shooter, seemingly inspired by the Endor speeder bike chase from Star Wars. While on a motorcycle dodging trees, you chase 2 other motorbikes as well as tanks and helicopters. When close enough, you destroy them by shooting. Each level is played during daytime and nighttime, and you basically drive around very quickly through a forest that gets thicker and thicker each level. Fast, furious and exciting, a well-known ZX Spectrum classic. Even though the sound gets annoying after a while, this game is awesome and worth playing today. You just cannot stop having another go. The title of this game, well, you probably know this already. 3D Death Chase. Now, well, here's my number 2, and I think it should have been number 1 if it weren't for those pesky Stamper Brothers. In 1983, AnyRock released their clone of the famous Missile Command arcade machine and called it Missile Defense. Programmed by Keith Burkill, who later created classic Spectrum hits such as Afterburner, Ghosts and Goblins, Commando, Marauder and the technically amazing Space Harrier. In Missile Defense, you defend your city and weapons against incoming missiles while you have limited shots available. The action soon gets wild, and the excitement of surviving each wave of enemy attacks will make your heart beat faster and faster. You can cause sequences of explosions by timing your shots exactly right, and you can prevent more attacks by shooting fighter jets that pass by. The arcade machine itself was a classic, and this 16K rendition of it is too. It cannot get any more exciting than this on a 16K specky. Missile Defense has many of the weapons, levels and bonuses of the original, and the short duration of the levels will induce tons of dopamine and adrenaline that any Candy Crush player nowadays would be jealous of. Yeah, no, I'm playing Candy Crush and I'm stuck on level 1230 and that's why I have to cancel this. Well, I think the number 1 should have been Missile Defense. I really do. But Missile Defense is an arcade clone, and the actual number 1 we're talking about here is an original idea. An original idea by the Stamper Brothers, of course, who gained eternal fame simply by creating this single-screen 16K ZX Spectrum game. It is, of course, Jetpack. This game simply has everything. Multiple stages with multiple baddies, all behaving differently, multiple rockets to build, and excitement and speed all round. We have colorful graphics and great beeper sound, and gameplay that keeps you coming back for another round again and again. Jetpack is slightly less heart-stoppingly exciting than Missile Defense, but makes up for that simply because it's so beautifully made. Any Specky owner knows Jetpack, and anyone who owned a Specky in their childhood will have played this over and over again. This is a Stamper Brothers achievement in its own right. Jetpack was the first game they made at Ultimate, and definitely their best in the 16K range of games. It was critically acclaimed in the press, has been revisited and referenced many times in other games, and simply is one of the greatest games on the ZX Spectrum of all time. It topped the charts for a long time, and for me it was the second game I ever played on a color TV. It was mesmerizing. You simply want to make that rocket fly into the air, and once completed several times, you get to build an entirely different model. The level progression, the variation in baddie behavior, the spitting sound effects and lasers flying everywhere make the game a complete arcade experience. And all of that in only 16K of memory. Even today, if you start playing it again, your social life will be over. I'm playing a game. Yes, I'm playing a 40-year-old game, and that's why I can't. So there you go. That is my top 15 list of 16K ZX Spectrum games. If you missed something or disagree or have anything else to say, please put it down in the comments. Place multiple comments if you want. It's free. You can do that for free, so why not do that? Please leave a like or subscribe to my channel, which will really help me and is greatly appreciated. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.